Hello, captains. Post time skip Sam here, and welcome to my live discussion. And I guess at this point, these are basically reviews of Chapter 25 of Honkai Impact 3rd, the Legion Theater. We not only get the perspective of the World Serpent, but we also maybe see some very crazy things that happen at the very end of this episode. Or chapter, I guess. I call it because I consider it episode because this is basically an anime. We're basically playing an anime. So, without further ado, before we begin, today is not today necessarily, but this is going to be the last time this discussion video goes up on this channel. So don't forget, take a look at the description down below. There's gonna be a link to my main channel where I'm gonna be doing my future discussions. So chapter 25, the most insane chapter yet, happens next week on the other channel. So go ahead and subscribe there. Otherwise, for these discussions, right, I've gathered comments and questions. I know a lot of you sending questions. You could also send in your comments about your favorite moments as well. That's totally okay for these discussions because we're here to celebrate these chapters. And I've gathered it from my Discord, from YouTube, and lastly from everyone hanging out in the live chat. So thank you once again for showing up in the live chat and also posting in the comments of the videos. That means a lot, so I appreciate it. And also, if you want to learn how to submit your questions for next week, things don't change, but also inform you on how to get your questions submitted because it is moving to a different channel. So, you know, make sure your question doesn't get left out. Okay, without further ado, let us begin with our talk on Chapter 24, starting off with the question that I always really start off these with, which is, what's your overall feelings on the chapter? Overall feelings on the chapter, well, how do I put it? This chapter has the lowest lows and the highest highs that I've gotten so far in Honkai. And I say lowest lows because I personally believe I don't think the World Serpent stuff was as interesting as everything else that was happening in the world. Because it felt like what was happening in World Serpent was like an overview of what we essentially got in Chapter 24, but just through the perspective of May and Raven, who didn't offer as much perspective on the situation as I thought they would. Obviously, they become very important later on, but at least in Chapter 24, it just didn't seem like it. But then when we move over to after we leave the World Serpent, go back to what's happening with Kiana and the crew, it's just like, what is going on? And then, of course, the teaser at the very end is just, we'll talk about it. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So I'm going to leave us also on a teaser as well. So the first question we have is from Herrscher of Free-to-Play, which is, any places in the story you admired? I thought about this. Any places in the story you admired? There were quite a few places. Obviously, the bar is really nice, and I think I mentioned this last time. We didn't get to explore the bar very much, and we'll get back to this boy here. We do have Elysian brought up a really great question about the boy, so we have a question about the boy when we talk about World Serpent. But I love the bar scene. Even though we don't get to explore the bar, I do love that we just get to have a moment between May and Raven at the bar just kind of chilling. I love it. Yes, as Herrscher mentions as well, the courtroom is absolutely insane. So this courtroom, absolutely beautiful. Even when we actually get into, the beach, right? That's that's the thumbnail of this. Look, see, I love the beach so much that I was like, I need to RP walk this beach. And so you're just going to see me here just walking on the beach because I love this so much. This was such a beautiful moment. So I love this here. This was definitely my favorite environment because I do love the environments we get to walk around. Obviously, it's not like The Office where it's like very condensed and there's like a lot of interesting things to see. I just love how beautiful it is. It's just such a beautiful art. And then I think I have another one here. Oh yeah, this scene as well. Not this one. This one. This place is also Theater of Domination, right? Also very beautiful. I love this moment here. So yeah, great places. I love them. So yeah, there's a lot of great, interesting places that we get to see throughout this. Obviously, we're going to Kiana stuff, so I'm going to go back to part 1 of this video so I don't skip ahead too much. We also still have more questions about the overall feelings of the chapter, also from Herrscher of Free to Play, which is any particular plot points in the story you liked. So there are quite a few, and obviously we're going to kind of go over it as we go through this discussion. But major one, and which I'll be talking about next, which is the Gem of Haste. I was not expecting that, despite how much I know about this game. I was not expecting this at all. So that one for sure. The other one, honestly, was just seeing, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about this, so I'll just talk about it now. It's a good place to talk about it now. The literal, like, if we look back at the Senti fight, right, of it making you just feel so powerful, making you feel like you're just in an anime, it was so amazing. And the other moment that happened in this is the scene where Kiana is fighting 500 puppets. I love that scene. Despite you not actually killing them all, right, it was just fun to get this gauntlet of puppets that you can just like destroy with no issue as you're just fighting your way to the theater. That was just such a great experience. I wonder if I have I should have some footage of it. But it was just, oh yeah, this one here. Like, it was so cool. And then seeing all the dangly threads, for all the puppets was just so amazing. And of course, like, not only are you doing this super cool thing, and the Herrscher is like, wait, what the, like, no, you have to stop, right? They're constantly trying to stop you, and then at the very, very end, right, we get some help from above, because obviously, I think it's actually right before this. It might be actually right before this, but essentially, like, the Hyperion shows up, right? And it's just such a cool thing, man. It is such a freaking cool thing to do. So yeah, this entire sequence was just so amazing. So everything about this, I loved. Peak moment in this chapter, and then it just continued to get better and better as we got up to the cliffhanger, which I do have some questions about the cliffhanger. I think it's just my questions, but yeah. We have from Elysian Empire, which is, lastly, what did you feel or thought of the last scene of the chapter, and what do you expect for the next chapter? So I won't answer the latter question too much, because just as a disclosure to everyone, so what I've done is I played through the chapters, I've taken like extensive notes, and then basically a few days to even today before doing my discussions, what I'll do is I'll go back through all the video watch, because I basically just recorded myself, no audio, no microphone, just playing through the entire chapter. So I just basically go through my notes, I look back through the videos to kind of remind myself of what's happened. So as of right now, I have caught up to chapter 29. I'm anticipating, waiting for chapter 30. So I'm actually fully caught up on the series, so I won't mention, I won't say what I expect next, just because I actually don't even have anything on my notes about what I was expecting next at the time. The biggest thing was obviously the Gem of Haste, which is just, I guess I never really, it's a very interesting reveal, because to me, I guess I never really thought about it as like that it could get, I guess I never really thought about where it is, right? When I was like, okay, like Himiko's gone, all right. I didn't really think about like what happened to the Gem of Haste, right? Which is very funny, because if you go through, if you go through chapter 9, like they don't ask the question what happened to the Gem of Haste, and I'm like, so I guess I never really thought about it. But it's funny, because if we look back at like, not look back, but if you look at like One Piece theories, when a character dies, everyone's like, okay, what happens to their powers, their devil fruit powers? Because in One Piece, if you die, you have a devil fruit, that power gets transferred over and can be used again. I never really thought that something similar could happen in Honkai, where not necessarily the gem gets recreated, but I guess I never really thought that like, oh, that if the character dies, the gem could still exist, right? The gem doesn't have to, like, not every time the gem dissolves or breaks apart. And that's what I just never really got. And maybe it's because Himeko's was in a part of her bodysuit and not her. So maybe that's the reason. Either way, I love the reveal. Amazing reveal. Because I was just like, no, like things are starting to make sense from what I've been seeing with the trailers that I've been watching, and the characters that basically spoil what happens to themselves, but now realizing, oh, this is how it happens. I'm like, so that freaked me out for sure. And then Elysian mentions about my chapter 29. So yes, I have completed ER. I just haven't gone through like the deep lore stuff. I've only just gotten through like the main story stuff for Elysian Realm, all from chapter 1 to 3. And then Gabby has a serious question. Have you? Oh wait, I should actually point out. Hold on, let me click. I used to know how to do this, right? So yeah, this was about Elysian Realm. So yeah, I did complete all the way up. Finished chapter 3 of Elysian Realm before it basically left. And then I guess because it had the limited time events, right? So I basically completed before the limited time event. And then I went to, I believe I started with, I think at that time was like chapter 20. I think it was before I even completed chapter 26 or 27. Either way, yes, I did complete Elysian Realm for that. And then Gabby has a serious question, which is, have you talked with Ai-chan during the party? I don't know if I did. Let me see, let me go back. Because this is the party scene. Because I talked to everyone who was physically there, unless Ai-chan was like hiding somewhere. I don't know if I talked to her. Because I went to each and every person I saw and then spoke with them. But yeah, I don't know if I saw an Ai-chan there. I definitely didn't put in my notes, that's for sure. All right. And then our next question is from Herrscher Free Play. How do you feel overall about the ending of chapter 24? I guess I kind of answered that with my huge spiel about how it's so super amazing and super cool. And then Gabby mentions that you can find her in the room or another. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think I just missed her then. That's a bummer. I didn't know Ai-chan was there. Oh my goodness. Amazing. All right. So let's move on to our first question, our first category, which is the second eruption. So this chapter starts off with the second eruption. Let me actually mark this down as a, as a chapter here. So I wasn't expecting them to cover second eruption again, but here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about it. A simple question for myself, which is, did you appreciate going through second eruption again? Actually, is this from me? Okay, no. So we do have, so did you appreciate, which was from me, and then Mr. Snurgles mentions, what did you feel when you saw the in-depth story of Siren? So for this one I'm going to say is that, and I think this is what led to chapter 24 having its lows and highs, is because I already read through the story, right, of second eruption. The manga is still very fresh in my mind just because we've read it over the course of several weeks. It definitely sticks in my mind a lot more than just playing through a chapter for, a few hours. So second eruption is definitely still fresh in my mind. So going back to it and seeing how, like, oh, and I mean, this is what like every manga reader does when they watch the anime. You miss this, you miss this, you miss this, and that was kind of me playing through the second Eruption scenes, where I was like, oh, but I've gone through this. Oh, I wish they told this a bit better. I wish they'd done this a bit better. So it actually, it didn't do much for me because I was so I was so in the mindset of I love second Eruption manga so much that I'm like, obviously it would need its own chapter to fully give it its just dessert in the game. So I think, from a non, if you didn't read the manga, I think this is a great introduction. A great overall feeling about maybe how Siren has been feeling, because I don't think we've really gotten the perspective of Siren throughout the actual game itself. It's only been through the manga. So it's been really great to hear that, and especially to see that, I don't know, I paused there, see that from the perspective of a character who is trying to communicate with her. And we even get moments about Cecilia, and they're really nice. So I think to folks who haven't read the second Eruption manga, I think it's fantastic. They've done such a great job. Because I read it, I'm like, I already know this. So that's kind of my feelings on it, because I think the manga does it a lot better. But if you haven't read the manga, this does a pretty decent job of giving you that perspective of how Siren felt, which is, I think, the huge bulk of what makes us care so much about Siren. It makes us care so much about the Herrscher of the Void. Because I feel like if you don't know anything about Siren, you're just like get away from Kiana, don't do anything to her. So I think it is very important to learn why we care about Siren so much. And then Herrscher mentions, did you watch the video of Kiana's story? Are you talking about Sparks Converge? Because that one is on the YouTube channel. Sparks Converge is on the YouTube channel, unless you're speaking about something else. But we'll move from the talk about second Eruption, and we will actually get to questions about Kiana and the puppets. But our next one is actually going to be about World Serpent. So we'll move on to World Serpent. World Serpent. World Serpent, luckily, thank you to the folks who have written in questions about World Serpent, because when I took notes about World Serpent, I didn't have really many questions to ask about World Serpent, because I felt like, and as actually a great point was mentioned in the chat, so let me go ahead and see if I could pull it out here. And I believe it was from Gabi Alex, so let me just grab it. It was about World Serpent, and I 100% agree on this fact. Okay, actually it's from Elysian, who says World Serpent do be underdeveloped, and this is something I couldn't agree with more, because World Serpent is extremely underdeveloped, and I think that's what felt weak about some of this chapter, is because I didn't know what the writers wanted to do with World Serpent. It makes sense when you know what happens in future chapters, but in this specific chapter, it didn't make sense why they were here. Because it was great to see and we'll talk about this later, but it was great to see other characters. But, we got to see Sora again, right? But it didn't make sense that they were here. And it really isn't, until May makes a big change in future chapters where it's like, oh, this is what World Serpent was leading up to. These moments. And so that's where I felt like, and it could be a case where the writers were like, we don't know what to do with World Serpent, so we're going to make things drastically change for this core group of people. And maybe that's what happens when things happen. I don't want to spoil it, because obviously we're going to get to that in chapter 25. So, I don't want to spoil it here. But yeah, so that's my feelings on World Serpent. But of course, we actually do have questions about World Serpent, not just talking about them. So opinions on the May and Raven interactions. So this one was actually really nice because we got to see, let me see if I have skipped through some footage. Actually, it should be in the beginning of the game. So yeah. So these mentions here, I actually really like the fact that we got to see these characters be normal, be human, right? They get to like chill for a little bit. So it was nice to see, to have this like very chill moment. And I think, I know I do have some issues when it comes to stories where it's like hype moment, and then let's cut to these characters who are chilling out, and it's like, no, I just want to get back to the hype, you know? So there's sometimes I have those feelings where I'm like, I need to go back to the hype. But when I kind of remove myself from those emotions, like, it is actually legitimately cool to see Raven and May kind of just become friends and to have their moments in the bar together, which was really chill. So I did actually appreciate those interactions. The other question from Elysian also goes back to the bar, which is Raven owning a bar and the story behind coming into possessing it. This one, I literally forgot about how she possessed it, and then I went back to learn about it, and I think I wrote it down, and then I think I forgot again. Hold on, I think I've actually written this down. I did not write this down. So I actually do not remember. I don't remember how she comes into possession of it. I believe it may have been from Gray Serpent, because I know Gray Serpent mentioned something about it. But chat, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. If it wasn't Gray Serpent didn't give it to her. Yeah, you weren't honestly. Oh, no, right. Okay, so she was raised up at the bar and she took over. That's what it was. Okay, this is the literal scene. Is that the people who were running the bar were taking care of Raven, and then she took over. So that's what this this conversation is about. Okay. All right, so that's where they got the bar here. Okay, yeah. So that was really nice, you know, and it actually shows a little bit about, you know, why Raven wants to take care of, you know, the kids from Nagazora, because, you know, she was just like them at one point. So it makes sense, like these characters, I guess it humanizes, right, the World Serpent characters, because obviously I'm always gonna harp on Kevin because Kevin is super cool, but also he is very emotionless. But we also learn why he's emotionless, right? We learn about why he is. But, you know, and then so you look at Kevin, right? He is very particular about what he wants, what he needs. And then we look also at Gray Serpent, and man is just nutty. Man is just after whatever, right? And so you're like, okay, I have these two characters who don't really feel human, who don't really feel relatable. And so to give Raven that perspective, and then also, yeah, well, I guess also Jackal, who is the woman behind the computer, who is very much, also very much to the business, doesn't seem like she cares about anyone else besides what she is doing in the moment. So it feels like for Raven, we actually get to learn that, oh, you're a human character inside World Serpent, like you're someone who's very relatable, right? So it's great to have this story of her being an orphan. So it does help, and then also to have her and May even banter off each other, which is it's really good. And then let me just chat. And then thoughts on Raven leaving World Serpent and coming back. I think it's fine because I guess to me maybe it feels like she feels that she can do the most at World Serpent, right? Because I think Raven exactly, and I think that's what all the characters at World Serpent are, right? They kind of know what they need out of World Serpent, and so I think like her leaving and coming back, it gives me the feeling that maybe this is the only option for her. It could also, yeah, it could also be the only option for her. But I don't find it too much of an issue about her leaving. Next question we have is also from Elysian Empire, which is views on May not drinking and how it could possibly relate back to May knowing of Kiana's reactions, opinions on, or history with alcohol. I think this is, honestly, I think this is like super important thing. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that they did this. Like, cause I feel like this is a very intentional choice that they've made, but I actually super appreciate it because obviously Kiana's experience is, I guess Kiana's experience with alcohol is basically when she was a child with Siegfried in the cabin where he used to be always drunk, right? Before he accepted Kiana as his daughter, you know, he was constantly drunk, constantly basically harassing Kiana, right? So the fact that May is like, I understand that you've had this like terrible relationship with alcohol, like I'm gonna respect that and not drink it even when you're not around. Like that's like a huge thing for relationships, and the fact that Hoyoverse was like, hey, let's write that in for this character, because obviously, you know, in a lot of anime and a lot of things, when someone offers you a drink, they'll always accept it, and then it's like fun times, right? But the fact that May refuses to take the alcohol, it adds so much to her character. Like she is still thinking about Kiana to this very day, which is perfect, and it's something that could be easily missed. To be honest, I missed it until I saw this question from Elysian. I was like, oh, you're right. Because when Elysian first put this question in the Discord, I was like, knowing of Kiana's relationship, I was like, oh my God, like you're right. It all relates back to it. And I'm like, oh, it's so good because it's something that you can easily miss. So that was absolutely amazing. And then talking about World Serpent, Raven is, I say that Raven is human, everyone else is nutty or emotionless. And then Owl's like, am I a joke to you? And I'm like, Owl, I'm sorry, man, but you're dead, okay? I'm sorry to tell you this, man. Stop haunting me. Next question here is, thank you, Elysian, for your questions and your comments. Speaking of Elysian, another question we have, which is thoughts on May rescuing what the fandom suspects and theorizes as Adam. So this is back to the child here, if I'm not mistaken. This one, I actually don't know, because for me, I don't know the, I don't know the ages of everyone, right? So I could not say, or I don't know, I guess I don't have a comment on this one, on whether or not this is Adam. It'd be very interesting, and I mean, it would make sense in a way why, you know, Adam and May are together here, like not together, but you know, why at the beginning of APHO they were, you know, together. So that's actually a very interesting little plot point. I'm curious when APHO was announced, to see how closely these are all like intertwined. But like, I would love for this theory to be true. I would love for this theory to be true. And then Gabi Alex mentioned, isn't Adam 10 years younger than May? Then it would make sense that this would be the boy, right? Because this boy looks like he's like 7 or something. He looks super, super young. But yeah, it'd be cool. It would be cool if the theory was true. So let's move on to our next question, which is now, we kind of briefly talked about this, but Sora and the Ruth showing more open admiration and affection to May than Raven. And Raven's implied jealousness of it also made teasing of Raven in front of Sora. this was a cute moment, and I mentioned this before as well. Let's actually see if I can skip to it. So these moments here, I actually, is it? I think it's one of these moments here. All right, she's already there. So I think it's like one of these beginning moments here. So there she is, there's Sora. Okay, we found Sora. Okay, so it is here. So I think I like this because it kind of shows that basically the Ruths basically are like, you are both our mothers, but obviously May does better cooking. So I think it's just the kids just having fun of like, we love you, Raven, but also please bring May more often because we want her to cook for us. So I think that's adorable. I think that's adorable. I think that Raven's jealousness is like, she's like, okay, the kids like you as well, fine, you know, kind of this reluctant, like, all right, you guys like, fine, I'll bring May over more often, you know, something like that. I feel like it's just a very goofy moment. And welcome, Kart, to the discussions. And then also May teasing Raven. I think this is a great moment because it kind of just shows how comfortable May is around not only the kids, but also around Raven. Like, you know, obviously, if Raven felt the same way back it was in chapter 17, you know, obviously, Raven would not take May's jokingness very easily. So it just kind of shows that they are a lot more comfortable around each other, that they're a lot more friendlier. So I love it. I love it. And yeah, as Elysian mentions, yep, Raven be jealous of May's cooking skills. Yeah. It's like, why can't I cook this good? I'm a good sniper. Kids, you want to learn how to snipe? And then Gabi Alex asking the important questions, which is, how did your body react when Raven removed her hood on the beach? It's actually quite simple. And I'll tell you why. Wait, hold on, I go back a bit. And I'll tell you why here. So she removes her hood, right? And then there's a moment here. Do I have the moment? Okay, I don't have the moment. There was a moment here. Oh yeah, you kind of saw it there. But the moment here was basically me pausing the game so that I can take a bunch of screenshots. Because I love it. This is the greatest reveal ever known to man. So I love it. I love that she has the hood reveal. And you know what? It adds more to the Raven May relationship where, you know, Raven is a lot more comfortable around May. So I love it. I love it. Next question we have. How do you feel about World Serpent? I'm not sure why I put this question last. This one, I already answered this question. So I'm just gonna skip it. I've already answered this question. This is my question, and I've already answered it. So moving on to Kiana, and we actually got a few Kiana questions in the chat as well, so I'll make sure to answer those. So Kiana was also a big portion of this chapter. She has done so many amazing things after, you know, after 24, chapter 20, or this is 24, after chapter 23. So yeah, we're gonna talk about Kiana. But first, let me pull up some questions from the chat that also mentioned Kiana. So let me go ahead and pull some of those. So one of the first questions is feeling on how the Himeko death and missing plotline was handled. Kiana wanting to hunt and find Himeko. So this one was interesting because I don't know if I took any of the story as her hunting and looking for Himeko. So I don't know actually how to answer this, Elysian. Because I actually never really considered or thought that she was like searching or hunting for her in a physical way, you know? So I guess I never really took it as that. So I would not be able to answer this question to the best of my abilities. But the next question we have is your comment from Mr. Snurgles, and welcome Turenai for joining the chat. But a question from Mr. Snurgles, which is your comment to Kiana's progressive character from chapter 1 to chapter 24. I love it. I mean, we've talked a lot about it as well in the previous chapters, but I think it's great to see Kiana's growth as a character, her finding more confidence in herself, and now what we're getting to the point of is now that she is confident in herself, now she is trying to, and maybe it's because the way she sees Seele, the way she sees Hua, like she's like, it's like, okay, let me see if I can try and understand, try to talk with my own Herrscher. And I think that's why we get the second Eruption flashbacks, why we get the moments where she is exploring Ciri's memories, while she is trying to contact Siren, not Ciri, while she's trying to contact Siren. Is because now that she is comfortable and confident with herself, now she is looking into trying to create that unity between herself and between Siren, which is fantastic. And then Elysian clarifies about the previous question. Is like, no, Kiana wanting to do so in the near end of chapter 24 before the puppets show her haste. Oh, let me go back here and check on this one here. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's when the puppets are kind of blaming her for the mistakes that are happening. Okay, basically the puppets are trying to get Kiana to like mentally break so that they can take over her. Let's see here. I guess it is interesting. Plot point? No, in her room? Even further back? Yeah, I guess like this point just never occurred to me that she wanted to do all this. Let's see if I can find this scene. Yeah, I guess it really just never occurred to me that that's what she was looking for, is just trying to go back and her feelings on Himiko. What I might do is I might just pin this for next week, chapter 25, so I can go back, read through it, get a refresher, and then give you a better answer for chapter 25, which is fine because honestly, chapter 25, there's some big major moments where the Gem of Haste comes into more of a play. So definitely it's still going to be on topic. So let me go ahead and actually mark it down so that I don't forget. So yeah, we'll mark it down there for chapter 25. So yeah, we'll go back to this question in chapter 25. So let's move on to another question from Elysian. We're still on the set of Kiana, which is thoughts on the plan to defeat the Herrscher of Dominance and Kiana's contribution to it. Kiana's idea of pulling the Hyperion into the theater, Kiana relying on others, helping and affirming it aloud to everyone, as well as trusting and believing everyone enough to sit out the fight and let everyone defend and protect her. We go back to Mr. Snurgles' questions about her progression as a character, the fact that she decides, you know what, other people can help me out in this fight. I don't have to do it alone. So yeah, once again, seeing that amazing character progression, which is fantastic. I love it. I freaking love it. And then Elysian saying, thoughts on the plan to defeat Herrscher of Dominance in Kiana. So I love the idea of pulling, like, it's an insane idea to pull the Hyperion into the theater. I love it because obviously it gives for such a elevated, such a climactic moment where you're fighting the puppets, the Hyperion shows up, starts destroying the rest of the puppets, and it gives you this feeling of like the plan is working. Everything is coming it together. It's just so amazing. So I love it. And then the fact that, you know, Kiana, you mentioned that Kiana's like relying on others and it being affirmed out loud. This is a great moment because it's finally a thing where Kiana realizes that like she not only can't do everything alone, but she also shouldn't, because everyone else here is also trying to do their best to save the world, essentially, right? So it gives her like a great moment. And here's me being impatient in the game while I circle around because they're not opening the damn door. Open the damn door. Look, I finished talking. So yeah, great moments. And then obviously we're seeing this training sequence. But yeah, I love it. I love it. And then Gabi mentions, is the puppet that pretends to be a fan of Kiana for saving Arc City the most despicable one? Oh. Oh yeah, for sure. And I wonder, I wonder if, because like you can think of this both ways, right? One way, it's like a great way if it was just a normal person, right? If it was a normal person, it's like, oh, that's really nice of you, right? Like, thank you. No one ever thinks about this because everyone thinks it's like a terrible disaster that almost happened. But I think since it is a puppet, it just kind of makes it like, nice job. You did well, you know. And you know, in the deep recesses of Kiana's mind, she still thinks that she screwed things up, right? So it just kind of picks it just kind of picks at it as well. And Elysian also mentions, Kiana coming up with the idea to pull the Hyperion into the theater shows and it alludes to Kiana being smarter than what the fandom was led to believe. That is also a good point as well. That Kiana is not dumb, you know. She is like, that's the thing about it. And I think it was mentioned, you know, actually many chapters ago for discussions, but like, yeah, Kiana is someone who is street smart, right? She's not book smart. She's not gonna ace her school tests because they don't matter in combat. They don't matter at the time when it actually truly matters, right? But she knows like situational. She knows what happens in the moments, right? So yeah, she's not like dumb, right? She just like, yeah, sure. She doesn't care about this dumb book that was given to her by Himeko years ago. Like, read this textbook, here's a pop quiz. It's like, she doesn't care about that, you know? She cares about what actually matters, which is the actual combat, the actual doing of things. And then Gabi mentions, to add what Elysian says, play Himeko's Chronicles for the proof that Kiana mostly playing dumb. And maybe I think that's where I got it from, because I did play Himeko's, maybe that's where I got it from, where it was, maybe that's where I got it from, where in Himeko's Chronicle story, where Himeko realizes that like, Kiana's just like good at what she does, she just doesn't put effort into like studying at all, into learning like school stuff. She's just good at everything else. Which is fantastic to her character. So I do love that a lot. And then I want to make sure I'm not missing anything early on about Kiana before I continue. So give me a moment. And then I know we mentioned this before here. Oh, here we go. Elysian says, thoughts on the gems and cores being interchangeable and the same, and Kiana technically being the Herrscher of Death. So I don't like, I guess it's so confusing because obviously there is the thoughts on the gems and the cores being interchangeable. I think that's like, that, I guess we already talked about that, right? Because I mentioned about the One Piece Devil Fruits, and I guess until I saw the Gem of Conquest being held by the puppets, it didn't really click with me that, oh wait, the gem of, like the actual gem itself has not been destroyed, it can be reused. So I think that brings up amazing opportunities for gems being transferred. interesting that they reintroduce this concept in this specific chapter. Definitely not hinting at anything. And Kiana technically being the Herrscher of Death, which is also a very interesting thing, but I think the Herrscher of Death concept is confusing for me, I'll be honest. It's confusing for me because, you know, there's like the timeline. That's what I'm trying to talk about, right? The timeline of the Herrscher of the End to the Herrscher of the Void, or maybe it's Herrscher of the Void to the Herrscher of the End to Herrscher of Death. It's like a weird wiggly line, and then also like sometimes it's like wiggles here, but then also sometimes like, well, Seele also could be the Herrscher of Death, and then wiggles there, and I'm like, okay, because they haven't said like who exactly is the Herrscher of Death, I just really haven't even taken the Herrscher of Death stuff into consideration, because I'm like, this is too conceptual for me. That I'm just like, I'm just gonna continue on until the game just tells me, hey, Herrscher of Death here. I dropped the water bottle. Herrscher of Death here, so. And I guess because also that the assumption for Herrscher of Death can be made because, you know, as Gabi mentions, can also revive people, which gives credence to Otto's reason for cloning and for having having this Kiana specifically. It's very interesting. But yeah, it's a confusing. It's the Herrscher of Death lineage is so confusing. I need the game to just flat out just tell me straight up who has it. That's all I need to know. But thank you for that question for both of you. I appreciate it. Oh, wait, this question here. And this was back to when we were talking about Kiana not being actually smart, and we talked about the Himeko Chronicles. So on that, Elysian Empire mentions on Kiana's grads, Kiana could be suffering bad grades due to her learning in different languages, circumstances, the curriculum, and environments, and then also branching off to the previous question, Kiana wanting to look for Himeko. Thoughts on Kiana not looking for the OG Kiana, but was going to look for Himeko. So I guess we'll talk about two of those questions. So yeah, so her bad grades could also be due to a multitude of different things. I think, you know, taking it from what I have seen in other stories with characters like Kiana, you know, it mostly plays off as, you know, and you kind of mentioned it here, which is actually very important, which is like environments. Not everyone learns the same way, right? Not everyone learns the same way. Like, you can, like for me, like I'm a very like hands-on learner. I can't just like watch a video and then like, okay, I immediately learn what I got. I need to actually like do the thing to learn it. And Kiana is probably a very similar way where she can't just like learn things by just like sitting in a classroom, reading a book and studying. Like that's just not how her brain works, right? She needs to be actively going, and that's why she does so well in combat. That's why she does so well in very physical activities, because she is actually doing something. She can actually learn it. And so I think that's where it is. So in addition to it, it's just the way, and this is with a lot of people as well, like learning in school isn't necessarily what everyone like knows very easily, right? Everyone learns a different way. And then going back to the previous question about thoughts on Kiana not looking for the OG Kiana, but was going to look for Himeko. This one, I feel like I think of her not looking for the OG Kiana the same way I thought about the OG Kiana, where the OG Kiana doesn't exist, right? That's kind of where my thought was about why Kiana's not looking for her, because, you know, like to me, I was like, oh, she just doesn't exist. So that's why I have that kind of, instead of looking for Himeko. And also I think Kiana's relationship towards the OG Kiana compared to Himeko. I mean, you know, OG Kiana was not ever in her life, right? Himeko was in her life for a lot. Was her biggest mentor, a great friend, you know, caring mother essentially. So like, it makes more sense for her to look for Himeko than ever think about the OG Kiana. So the next question we have is also from Kiana, or also from it's about Kiana, but from Elysian, which is views on Kiana and Welt's interaction, followed by Hua within their conversation about Teri Teri, Sele, and Bronia. I appreciate that. I don't have like a specific view on each of their conversations, but just in general, I do appreciate that we're hearing Kiana speak with different people, especially with Welt, who has been through so much, who has understand his powers at this point, who has understand his relationship with the Herrscher. I think it's great. So I do appreciate that, and I think this is like, this moment here ties back to one of your original questions. Let me see if I could pull it up here, which is this: her being able to trust everyone, right? Because having these conversations, hearing everyone's experience and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this all happens before she even talks to Siren. So I think this all happens before she speaks to Siren. Let me see if I'm correct. Because it would make sense that... Okay. Because it would make sense that she would speak with everyone, and then she'll like, okay, now hearing everyone's thoughts and views, now, like, maybe I can speak to... let me see if I am capable of speaking to Siren, or reaching out. But at least, at the very least, like, I do feel that this was very important to her, to have these interactions. So I 100% agree with this, with the views. Like, like, speaking to everyone just helped give her that, like, affirmation, that, like, that thing that, like, I can trust everyone. Everyone is out to save the world. I don't have to do this alone. And then Elysian also mentions, what are your thoughts on Kiana asking Bronia, or, you know, Vel, Teri about their views on Siren's actions, and the Herrscher of the Void, and Kiana and her relationship. So for this one, it kind of goes back to the previous question as well, where it's her just trying to understand, like, how to talk to herself, right? Talk to Siren. Because, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, like, at this point, Kiana knows what she wants, right? She has grown as a character, so what's next for her? It's for her to actually understand who Siren is, and to hear the different perspectives of how different people think, especially talking to Sele, where it's like, you literally have a person who's a bit angry inside you. Tell me about them. Tell me how I can communicate. So I appreciate this stuff. I honestly wish it was more in depth with her and Sele, but obviously this chapter was already chock full of so much stuff that, like, having so much dialogue between her and Sele would have probably wouldn't have been added into the chapter. So. And another question from Elysian, which is, how amused were you at Sele trying to find Kiana to do damage control, as she was worried about Vel did something wrong and weird due to Vel refusing to tell her what happened? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's maybe one of these ones. Let me see if I can try and find it. If I can't find it, it's cute. It's cute. I appreciate it when Sele is just, like, very cute and confused, and so this was just one of those moments where I'm like, this is just like a funny little gag inside the chapter. So I did actually like it. It was just cute, so I loved it. And then another question from Elysian, which is thoughts on Kiana and the Herrscher of Dominance's puppets interactions, and the puppets trying to make Kiana one of them, bringing up things that Kiana felt responsible for or contradictory actions. I loved it, right? Because we mentioned this extensively, so I won't go into depth about it, but in chapter 24 about basically the puppets are cults. They're trying to exploit you on your weaknesses so that you feel weak, that you feel that the cult is there to support you, and that's what the puppets are trying to do with Kiana. They're like look at all the bad things you've done. Like you're pretty shitty. I mean, but we can help you out. It just kind of lends it, because I mean, the beginning of this chapter was all about oh, we should get the Herrscher of the Void. Oh, we heard. Oh, but it's a trap. But oh, we'll accept the trap. And there are all these things. I loved it. It's great. So I appreciated that. The puppets aren't giving up. They still want Kiana. And now, from Kiana to Anti-Entropy. Let's talk about them. Anti-Entropy. First question we have is, what's your take on Ein saying that Kiana mastered Edge of Taishuan? Amazing. Amazing. The fact that I will say that I wish this moment was shown rather than told. I think it would have been cool to see a moment where maybe Hua gets a glimpse of what Kiana is doing, and she's and Hua is kind of taken aback that she's already mastered it, or some kind of moment, instead of Einstein, who isn't as well connected with Kiana and Hua. It's oh, she mastered the Edge of Taishuan. It's oh, I mean, that's really cool, but I kind of wish there was more emotional impact to it, either by showing it through Kiana literally fighting 500 puppets, or through or actually just through Hua kind of bringing up that comment as well. But yeah, it's still a great moment. I just wish it was either told, either shown or told, or Hua was the one who brought it up. Elysian also mentions, what did you feel during the AE party where Weltz, Ein, and Tesla reminisced about other founding members of AE and the events of 1955? This was a touching moment because it shows you how far everyone has come. It also shows you how ageless everyone is. Because definitely I believe this is the one. I believe this is the one where, where is it? I think it was Tesla who approaches, Kid Welt, and I'm oh, did I just ignore the fact that both Ein and Tesla are super old, but they just look ageless? I must have forgotten that part. But yeah, I do actually love the party part. It just gives you a moment where you're they've come so far, and they're not ready to give up yet, despite losing so many people. So I appreciate having the party moment. Actually, there's maybe I can skip to it, but I think that's it for. I mean, that's really it for my AA stuff. That questions that I have. So let's go on to the Hua and Teri mission. Which our first question from Elysian, which is, what are your views on the mention of Senti and her and Hua's connection through the core? How do you think this aspect of their relationship connected through the core, shared experiences and senses, will be used in future chapters? This one is a great question, because what I love the way Hua describes it is it's a game of tug of war, where Senti does not want to be spoken with, does not want to be let out. This was also the moment where I accidentally had it slip in chapter 23, where I think I mentioned something along the lines of Senti just doesn't want to leave or doesn't want to go out. this was the moment, right? Because Senti's like, I don't want to talk to you, so I'm just like, I'm never going to talk to you. And so I love that because it shows that Senti is still there. She hasn't given up. She's just stubborn as all hell. And so, and the fact that Hua describes it as a game of tug-of-war means that someone is going to lose, which means that we're probably going to see Senti in the future. So I'm excited. It's just that, come on, Hua, break through, break through. I love it. And then Elysian also mentions, oh yeah, Sam, what was that about Senti not being in her rebellious phase? Did I mention that she wasn't in her rebellious phase? Okay, so I think I may have misspoken. Because I don't think, like, at least now, I don't think I've ever considered Senti not rebellious. She's always rebellious, or at least stubborn. So yeah, I may have misspoke then in the chapter 22 discussion. Because yeah, I think that is her character to the core, is being very rebellious and being very stubborn. I think definitely she has softened up to where Kiana and Hua can speak with her. Like, I think that if Hua is speaking to Senti, she hears everything. She's just like, I don't care, and I'm gonna tug. And I think the more they have conversations with Senti, I think the more she'll start loosening up that grip on the chain, and you know, we'll finally get that communication between Kiana, Senti, and Hua. And then Elysian mentions to the point about Ein mentioning about Kiana learning the edge of Taishuan. Let me pull this one up here, which is referencing Shattered Samara when Kiana masters and performs the EOT. Oh, I see, okay. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I guess for me, it's just, I wish it was a different character who specifically pointed it out, just because it would have felt more emotional. Next question we have is your opinion of Hua express of Senti still in line with what you thought, or do they differ? They're still the same as what I felt in the previous chapters, where they're like, Hua is just doing her best to try and communicate with Senti. So yeah, nothing about my opinion has changed. So you know what? Go watch chapter 22 if you want to learn my opinions about this. Oh, like a nice segue. We have another question from Elysian, which is, what were your thoughts on the conversation Teri and Hua was having about Kiana's restricted movements? Their thoughts of what Kiana thinks of it, and Teri comparing the old Kiana with the new Kiana. This one is a very interesting question. What are your thoughts on the conversation Teri and Hua was having about Kiana's restricted movements? Yeah, I actually don't have an opinion on this particular question, because it was never something that stuck out to me in the actual conversation that was happening. I think it was interesting about her comment about the old Kiana, like comparing old Kiana to the new one, which is super fascinating. Obviously, it's not something you would necessarily want to share with Kiana. So I don't know any particulars about the conversation. All I know that is that it was a weird thing for, and maybe it was just more out of comfort for just giving Hua the kind of like, hey, like you should probably know about this sort of thing. But yeah, I don't really have a particular opinion about it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next question, which is from Gabi Alex. How much did the interaction between Hua and Senti affect their relationship? Do you think it will backfire in the future? I don't think it will backfire, because it technically already backfired. Where Kiana and Hua were fighting Senti all throughout chapter 22. they finally, you know, Hua sacrifices herself. And what ends up happening is Kiana breaks through, takes down Senti, rescues Hua, and now the backfire is that, hey, Senti doesn't want to even come out. Senti doesn't want to speak with anyone. Senti doesn't want to do anything. So I think that's the backfire. So I think the only thing that can make this better is Hua continuing what she's doing, which is trying to speak with Senti. And hopefully we'll get moments where Kiana is also trying to speak with Senti, just because they can relate a bit more, and essentially have Senti loosen up. So I actually do think it already backfired, and now we're in the recovery period of like, I'm sorry, like, look, I know what we did was bad, but it was like, it's just, we didn't mean it that way, okay? We just didn't want Hua to die, like, so. That's why I think it's already backfired, and that's why they're in the mode of I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We have a question from Herrscher of Free-to-Play. How much did Hua pretending Teresa is her little sister amuse you? It was wonderful. We have this scene where like the guard stops her. Yeah, here it is. Like where the campus guard stops her, and it's so funny. And you know what? I'm surprised that Teresa wasn't as like combative with this issue, but you know, she kind of oh, you know what? Okay, you know what? Fair enough. Fair enough. I was gonna say that, but she like legitimately already stutters. Like in this scene right now, she's like, yeah, my big sister told me her school is pretty. So yeah, she already has that reluctant feeling. And then she kind of like turns on a dime of like, okay, well, let's go, little big sis. So I wish we had more moments where it was just like her getting stopped, like, okay, yes, big sister, you're amazing. But yeah, the scene amused me. It was, and that's what I mean. These scenes have like moments of levity, which are it's nice. They're able to balance dramatic moments, and then they're very like very lighter moments, very wonderful. And then that Dinosaur from Paris mentions, Teri is an adult. She understands, I think. Yeah, she understands, like, okay, you know, I kind of look like a kid. Okay, whatever. So yeah, that's wonderful. And then our last category for today is the Herrscher of Domination. Our Herrscher of Dominance. At this point, I'm just gonna call him either way. They made it purposely confusing instead of just sticking with Herrscher of Domination and the Legion Herrscher. But you know, here we are talking about the dominated Herrscher. So, I do actually have some questions about this. So I'm going to go back early on. So let me just give me a few moments while I just scan through the beginning of this stream's chat. Because there was actually a question about the puppets that I want to make sure I do not forget. We already did go over Herrscher Free-to-Play's comment about the auditorium courtroom was absolutely brilliant. So I do love that. Let me see if we have any more. Oh yeah. Noel Kart brings up a beautiful question, which was one of my notes as well, which is the puppets in the section, in the actual section, which is beep, boop, 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 boop. They actually have they all have their own names, which is just, it's an unnecessary detail that I thank you. Thank you for adding this detail. A puppet named Hans, right? Oh wait, a puppet named Hans, right? You hit a puppet named Newland, a puppet named Flando de Tal, a puppet named Peace. Like they didn't need to do this, but they did to emphasize all the people that they took over. And that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I love that. Albus. So yeah, I love that they have this moment. I mean, obviously a puppet named Joint. I don't know if you would name your kid Joint, but you know, it's nice to see that they put in consideration into giving everyone a name. And then even Elysian mentions there's a puppet of a Castellana. Wow, that's huge. Oh my god. That is wild. I had no idea. That's kind of cool. Okay, great. Amazing. So next up we have is a Herrscher free to play. Do you feel the current era Herrscher of Dominance is better than the other previous? Okay, you know what? Here, this is what I'll do. I'm just gonna say the Legion Herrscher and the Herrscher of Dominance. Do you feel that the current era Herrscher of Dominance is better than the previous era Herrscher of Legion or Dominators? It's just, I hope they don't make another confusing Herrscher like this again. Just say it. Just give them a different name. Don't make it so similar. I like the current era more, and I think it's solely for a storytelling reason, which is it's more cult-like, right? So there's more of a menacing, more of a creepy feeling to it. And so that's why I like the current era more, because I love that story being told. And also, it could also be played into a fact that, like, we didn't get much of the previous era Herrscher of Dominance. Like, we didn't get to learn a lot about that character, so it doesn't play as much of a role. So there's that as well. There's that as well, that, like, obviously I like the current era more because we got to hear more about it. Whereas the previous era got mentioned in a single chapter of a manga, as well as partially in here. So I will say I do like the current era more. And I do like that cult side of things, which lends a lot to the actual character. Next question we have is thoughts on the Herrscher of Dominance meeting and discussion at the start of the chapter. This was some of my favorite moments as well in the chapter, because it just gives us this very, very menacing feel of, like, here are all the puppets here in the courtroom speaking about, like, what do we do next? You know, AE is taking us down, like, so I love to hear about this as well. And then also, like, I mean, we just literally saw it, like, these goofy moments of, like, oh, Mr. Landon, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that this was a part of your hometown. And it lends so much to this character. And honestly, like, this is like another reason why I consider it to be one of my favorite, why I prefer the current era over the previous era, because we get these moments like this. So I absolutely loved this conversation so much. And then that Dinosaur from Paris mentions, they made it pretty clear that it was much stronger than the PE one, mainly because the CE Legion Herrscher actually strategized about moves unlike the PE one, who overwhelmed with numbers. And I guess that's where we get that factor of, like, they decided to set, like, a courtroom to discuss and strategize what to do next. Which is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So next question we have is also from Herrscher of Free to Play, which is, what do you think Herrscher of Dominance did wrong in this chapter, and or how would it affect the ending if they did everything right? I mean, if they did everything right, then they would basically take over the world. What did you think they did wrong in this chapter? I think what they did wrong is they did not get to Kiana soon enough. I think Kiana, if they were able to get Kiana right, like even right after Nagazora, they could have gotten her, right? They just got to Kiana too slow. Kiana should have been the first thing in her plans to get Kiana. So that's how I feel. I don't know why they went with, I guess it makes sense why they went with Valonia, but like I feel like if you're trying to get someone into your cult, like the last person you want to go to is someone who's angry, because they might then end up being angry at you. And so it's like, let's go for people who are a bit more like docile or who are really depressed. So Kiana. So I do wish that it was, so yeah, well, I don't wish that they were, I don't wish that they were right. I just mean that I do wish that if they were to try and have everything right, they would need to have gone to Kiana sooner. For sure. Another question from Elysian, which is thoughts on May's interactions with the puppets, and the puppets subsequently try to make May into a puppet. This one wasn't interesting. This one, if I'm not mistaken, this one was like actually like a funny one. Because like here, if I'm not mistaken, like it didn't feel like May was bothered by it. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like, this was a comedic one. This was a comedic one, where like May is just like unfazed by this. Like she is already matured enough. Her and her Herrscher are completely in sync with each other. They're like, so it's just like, what are you on about? Like what? You know, it's basically how anyone else feels when they're trying to get recruited by something. It's just like, yeah, okay, no, thank you, I'm good. So yeah, this was just a comedic this was just a comedic one, so I loved it. So yeah, will you consider? It's like pulls out her blade. Nah, I ain't considering this. So I love it. Yeah, so yeah, great moment. Absolutely fantastic moment. So let's move on to the next one, which is Elysian mentioning, do you think it was a missed opportunity for the Herrscher of Dominance to not try to make Hua a puppet? Note, making one a puppet usually means making them a victim, giving up the world and life, or depressed, usually by pointing out depressing facts and events in their life. This one's actually a good question. I don't know if it's, I think it is a missed opportunity. I think it is a missed opportunity. When I originally read your question, I originally read it like them going after Hua. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's like really necessary. But I think it brings up an interesting point why they didn't. Like, I wish we knew about that. Is it that they potentially sensed that Senti was like far too powerful and that Senti still wants Hua with her, which gives it that, which if like let's assume that the puppets try to communicate with Senti or try to communicate with Hua, and then they realize that both these characters truly want to be with each other, but Senti is just being very stubborn about it because she's upset that literally Kiana, you know, saved Hua and Senti didn't get her way. So I do actually would love to know why the puppets didn't go after Hua. Like, I want to know, like, who was it? Was it Senti, like, wanting to still be with Hua, who rejected the puppets? Was it Hua who wanted to be with Senti and rejected the puppets? I would love to know that conversation between them. That would have been so important. So I would have loved to learn about that. So yeah, definitely missed opportunity, 100%. And other questions. We made it to the end of this discussion. So I'm going to answer a few more questions from the chat before we say our goodbyes. I'm also going to quickly look through the chat as well, because I do know I skipped over a few questions because they didn't necessarily relate to the category or the conversations that was happening at the moment. So let me pull those up here. And then Gabi Alex mentions, World Serpent is a more secret organization, but I have a feeling they are going to play a big role this year. I absolutely agree. We are still, so I do agree. And in addition to this, next week, the supposed release date of Chapter 30 is July 11th, so we're definitely going to be streaming that live over on the main YouTube channel as soon as it comes out, 100%. So we're going to learn more. And then Herrscher Free Play mentions, a few weeks after Himiko's death, about everybody who played Honkai forgot about her gem. We were just so sad. We were just so sad. We didn't think that, the gem would come back into play. So definitely true. Let's see here, pulling up. And then Gabi Alex mentions a question about, I actually don't, about a character searching for the Gem of Haste. I'm actually not sure if this is a chapter 25 question. Because I don't remember this character being in chapter 24, so I'm gonna skip that question just in case it's spoilers for chapter 25. I also actually, and to be honest, I don't know how to answer this question either. So I'll also need to do research for next week. I'll also need to do research for next week as well for that question as well. And let me see if we got any more questions. And then Elysian brings up a good point about chapter 24 and 25. The use of the cores and gems are interchangeable, even some cores being called gems. So either one kind of really works, which is good to know because we'll be talking a lot more about that next week as well. And then there were some comments about, the Herrscher of the Dead, but of course, because we haven't, there's not really officially, this character is the Herrscher of Death. We're just gonna kind of skip over those questions, but obviously the live chat is available for replay if you want to kind of see those comments and discussions about those ones. And then we also have, this is a point from Elysian, which this was during the conversation about the puppets having different names and how one of those puppet names was the Castellana name, and Elysian mentions, and it makes you wonder why the Castellana house or Kiana tried to meet and talk to each other during this Saint Freya time period. I wonder if Kiana knew. I don't know if Kiana, I think Kiana's in her own little bubble where she doesn't you just don't know your other classmates, So I don't think she knew, or better yet, probably Teresa or, Otto, just let's not talk about, let's not bring this other person into the conversation. Let's make sure that them and Kiana don't meet, right? So it could be that as well. And then Elysian also mentions here, or why the Castellana house didn't hunt down for being a Castellana turned Herrscher, or question Otto about making a clone of a family member made to a Herrscher. I wonder if not everyone. I feel like the only Castellanas who actually know about the the things that Otto is up to is probably just Siegfried, you know, Siegfried, Cecilia. I feel like it's not necessarily like everyone in the Castellana family knows about everything that's going on, you know. So yeah, I feel like not everyone knows about this. It's just that I think it's also like, yeah, I think it is a secret. Because even when Kiana was younger, it was kind of just dumped on Siegfried. She was like dumped on Siegfried, like, all right, you're taking care of this child. This is number 423. Enjoy. It's like, oh, okay. Well, Kiana being a clone was more or less disclosed after chapter 9. But was it like publicly disclosed? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think it was publicly disclosed. Like, hey everybody from the Castellana household, this is Kiana. She's a clone of your long lost grandma. Enjoy. You know, I don't think I feel like because like you're right in that I feel like they would be very, very upset if they knew. So I feel like because we haven't gotten a scene where they are upset, or the fact that Otto just like, actually, you know what? The Castellana household absolutely knows. The reason why it's not brought up is because Amber's taking all those calls. Otto is just like sitting back. He's like, look, I don't care. Amber, you handle them. And Amber is answering the phone call every single day, like, I'm sorry. Look, what if we send you some money, okay? Just don't talk about it anymore. You know, so maybe they do know, and Amber is just handling it all. We have to speak with Amber. Amber knows what's happening. Amber absolutely knows what's happening. And speaking of Amber, thus, the end of this discussion is here. And for chapter 25, because, okay, so chapter 25, it's going to be a big moment, folks. It's happening on the main channel. So I know you hear this every single time, where I'm always pitching to you, go to the main channel, go to the main channel. Well, now is the time, because if you don't go to the main channel, right now I'm looking for a link to the main channel because every time I bring it up, I always don't have it with me, and I don't know why. So here we go, main channel. Make sure to subscribe and follow the main channel, because guess what, folks? This is the last video you'll be seeing on this channel for quite some time, because all my chapter 25 discussion, all my gameplays of chapter 30, basically anything Honkai Impact, it's going over to the main channel. This move has been in the works for quite some time, and we have finally come to this end. Obviously, this channel is still going to get updates, still going to get posts, like once I'm able to, once I don't have so many Genshin videos coming out on that other channel, we'll be doing clips and highlights from the main channel onto this channel. So you'll still get some videos, but definitely if you want to get up to date on discussion videos, if you want to get up to date on all the goodness that is chapter 30, you gotta follow the main channel. That's where all that good stuff is happening. But of course, I guess that's it from me. Next chapter, chapter 25, is going to be absolutely insane, because now we're finally going to get some more discussion, more talk about the Gem of Haste. I absolutely love it. So, oh, if you want to know how to submit questions for chapter 25, You can submit those questions and comments. Look, I appreciate the comments. So if you have a comment about like, oh, I love this moment in chapter 25, like definitely post in the comments because I will add it to this video discussion. This isn't about asking me questions. You can also mention your favorite moments. So I highly encourage that. So you can submit those in the YouTube comments down below this video, as well as you can wait till Sunday. I will post a chapter discussion on my main channel where I'm asking for submissions for questions. And you can also submit it on the Discord as well. It's going to be under the channel name Chapter 25. Make sure to read the rules first because that gets you access to all the community channels where you can chat in. So thank you once again to everyone for taking the time to watch this video. Welcome, Hannah. Good morning. You're waiting for the 5.8 update. It's happening soon. How long should I wait for the answer I asked on the last chapter discussion? That, I believe the one you asked is actually on chapter 29. So we got quite a wait, about 4 weeks left, Hannah, until we can get back to your question. But don't worry, I have it. I have basically, I have documents of every single chapter with all my notes, and I have a section for questions. So I basically copied and pasted your question from last week into that one because your question works very, very well into the chapter 29 discussion. But yeah, but Hannah, this is actually the end of the video. I actually did my whole spiel, but thank you for coming. And thank you everyone else for coming in the chat, for hanging out. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to be able to just talk about discussions and talk about this stuff with all of you. So I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Patience is virtue. But thank you everyone so much for taking time to watch this video. I don't know if anyone else is streaming. So yeah, so I'm just gonna end it here. So thank you. Okay. Oh my God, my voice, it's going.